Hi everybody, and welcome back to Sew Along with Jan and the August Kimberbell Mini Quilt. So we're going to do a couple more blocks in this video. This video will be the umbrella and the beach bag block, and then in the third video we'll do the assembly. So there wasn't a lot of blocks in this one, so that was kind of nice. So this one is kind of neat. It has some quite a lot of applique, but then it also has some vinyl. So we're going to do, let's see, I was going to look at the information here. It says to put the fusible backing on the wrong side of the background fabric, which is this blue, this light blue. And it says on the swimsuit, which is now my swimsuit, I didn't have any plaid, so mine's going to have lemons. So I had this cute little lemon fabric. And then the umbrella sections 1 and 2, so that's this pink and yellow here. So these all have shape flex on the back. Now there is one piece that does not, and that is this white. It didn't say to put it on the back of this little white piece. It's like a flower or something, so I didn't put any shape flex on the back of that. So, and I think we're going to be doing some quilting again. This is another one of those blocks that needs to be, oh, and then we're going to have vinyl on top of that. So then there's these 2 pieces of vinyl in your embellishment kit. One, they actually had colored vinyl, pink and yellow. So these go on top of the umbrella sections. And then this is going to be another one of those blocks that if you don't have an 8x12 hoop, if you have some software, you can remove steps 3 and 4 of the quilting design, and then it would fit in a 6x10 hoop. So that's something, and again, I'll link that video that I did that on. It was in my Sweetland of Liberty pillow that I did a couple of years ago. So I will go ahead and link that in here also, so that you can see that video about the software and how you would do that. All right, so I think what we're going to do, we're going to get our no-show mesh in the 8x12 hoop. So if you have an 8x12, that's what I'm going to be using. Here's my vinyl. Let me put this over here. And then we're going to bring in our quilting design, and then we're going to bring in our design. So let's get that started first. So I've got my no-show mesh in my hoop, my 8x12 hoop. I have embroidery bobbin thread in the bobbin, and I just have my quilting thread in my thread. So I'm going to quilt this block in the blue. So I have my blue thread in there. So I'm going to go ahead and get my design. So let's get our quilting design. And I chose spring 1 instead of summer 1 because I don't have that one. So I'm using spring 1. It also has some umbrellas on it. So they look like beach umbrellas, and I thought they would work just fine. So spring 1. Move down here. Sorry, I can't go too fast because then they go flying. Let's see here. Spring 1. Here it is. Okay, and this one's going to be the 6x8. So it's going to end up being 6.5 by 8.5. And it's block by block. So I'm going to go get my 6x8. Let's see here. 6x8. Here it is. Get that one first. I'm going to set that. And then I'm going to go get my design, which is the umbrella design. So I'm going to hit add. We'll go get our design off the stick. Mini Quilts, July, August. Okay, and then let's see here. We need this one. So here's the umbrella. And this one says to bring it in centered, so it automatically on our Brother Baby Lock machine centers, so that should be good. We're going to hit set and embroidery, and I think we're ready to go on this one. So I did kind of change up some of my colors, so we'll see how things go. Since some of my fabrics were a little different, I did a couple of different color changes on this one, so let's see how the colors go. All right, so I'm going to start with the quilting. I put my blue thread in here. And step number 1 for the quilting, of course, is going to be our placement line for the batting. I'm going to get my batting chunk up here, ready to go. My batting ready. And it works really well with the batting chunk. I just never have liked to cut too well, so I figured then I don't have to cut the batting too. All right, we'll get this over the placement line. Make sure I have enough here. A second. And then step number 2 is going to be the tack down for that line, or for the batting. I like quilting these this way. It does work really well for the small items. I still like to do the quilts like block by block, so I usually don't quilt them. Quilt as you go like this, block by block, I usually quilt them after. So it's going to go around this twice. And then we're going to trim the batting. And let's see, then we're going to move on. I think it's going to do some, in the designs, I think it's going to put some leaves down first, and then we're going to do some of the applique in the umbrella. All right, so I'll wait till this ties off, and then I will go ahead and trim this batting. And again, I put the blue thread in because that's what I wanted to quilt the block in. I think it's 017 light blue. Have a little trouble with this big hoop. There we go. All right. That trimmed, and then the third step is going to be the placement line for the fabric, and this is one of the ones that you would remove if you have the 6x10 hoop, because then it would make it, oops, I don't think it's going to catch. Sometimes I have a little trouble if that happens. Let me show you. Sometimes that happens. I'm going to cut. Let's go back, because if that happens, sometimes what I notice is that when you're just sewing on batting, or excuse me, just on stabilizer, it doesn't always want to pull the bobbin thread up, and my thread was in properly, but sometimes what I'll do, this bobbin case is a little tight since I'm using my pre-wounds, I'll just not cut it off at the bottom. I'm going to put it back in and not cut it off, and just leave this little extra tail hanging here so it has a little something extra to grab a hold of. Then I'm just going to hit my negative positive needle, and I'm going to go back to the beginning of this step number 3. And then try it again. That often helps pick up the bobbin thread. Yep, did that time. So if you have that problem, don't, especially if you're using pre-wounds. Pre-wound bobbins are wound tight, and those bobbin cases are tight, and so that does happen, especially on, like, you're basically not sewing on anything except the stabilizer, so it makes it a little harder. So that's one way to fix it. Okay, so we got our placement line. I've got a little selvage on the bottom of my shape flex, so I'm going to make sure that I can cut that off. I want to make sure I cut that off when I'm trimming this, so I'm going to bring it down this way just a little bit. Make sure that'll get cut off. Okay, and get it in here as centered as possible. And then step number 4 is going to be that placement line, or sorry, the tack down line for the fabric. Then we're going to move on to the quilting. I like this blue. I kind of like to do my quilting that's kind of matching to my block fabric, so it depends on, you know, if you really want your quilting to show, you can use darker thread. I use thread that's fairly matchy just because I like it to be kind of in the background. All right, so step number 5 is going to be our quilting. This is going to be all of our little beach umbrellas. And I'll get this started, and then I'll stop the camera for a little bit while it quilts the quilt or the block, and then we'll move on to some applique. Okay, so we've got all of our quilting done, and now the next step, oh, I guess we have to do a little bit of some leaves. And they make them blue. I don't know exactly why, but we're just going to make them the color they say. It's like a flower or something. So the leaves are kind of blue. And I'm using my kind of that cornflower blue. It was called Glacier Blue, 288. What's the number on that one? Okay. So that's the next step. So this is the first step in the actual design. And it is on page 9 of the instructions. So we'll do that, and then we're going to move on to, I think the next steps are applique. Okay, so I got the little leaves on here, and the next step is going to be the pink part of the umbrella. So we're going to do, the next step will be the placement lines then for that, and then we're going to place our fabric down, and then we're going to trim that. This also has shape flex on the back. So we'll do the placement lines first, and then the tack down line. I did go ahead and put my pink thread in also. That matches my fabric. This is the lighter pink. And then the other half of the umbrella is yellow. Okay, so then we're going to lay this down over the top and stitch out our tack down lines here. Okay, sure I got it covered. We're going to do our tack down line, and this is on this is step number 3 on page 9 of the instructions. So this is the fabric part. We're going to put some vinyl over the top, but that'll be a little later. So we're going to do the fabric first. I like the pink and the yellow. I think that'll be really pretty. I was surprised that these leaves were blue though, but I think you put that little white piece over something down here. Maybe it looks kind of bluish then with the white. You didn't put any shape flex on that one. I think that steps on the next page. So then we're going to trim these. Okay, so I'm going to trim these close to the stitches. I think there's satin stitches over these. Okay. Just make sure I got that close enough so it won't. If I can get my hoop out of here. My 8x12 hoops are always very tight in my machine. I need to clean. If you clean the receivers like with like mild alcohol, like rubbing alcohol, it cleans them off because sometimes they get dirty and then they get really tight. So I need to clean this one again. Okay. All right, so there's those two. And then the next step is going to be the yellow. So I'm going to put my yellow thread in. That matches my fabric. I think this is actually Harvest Gold, I think. All right. And we're going to do our placement lines again. That. And then we're going to put the yellow down and do the tack down. Like that. Lots of applique in this one. This one's a little bit bigger. Oh, I got a piece of, second here, I got a piece of thread in there. Sometimes I get thread in my shape flex. It sticks to the shape flex and then it shows through the fabric. I have to press that down a little bit more. That'll be okay, I think. There's the second piece. This one had 3 pieces. It's going to be a cute umbrella. I really like that little quilting design. Oops. Got thread all over the place here. All right, so then we're going to put our yellow down and do the tack downs for this. Okay, put this over here. I got it all covered up. All right. Do the tack down lines, and then this one, then we're going to trim close to the lines as well. Turn my page. This is on the bottom of page 9, just steps 4 and 5. Then we're going to do the swimsuit, I think. That's the next part, and then the little flower. Okay, so we got this one all done. We'll trim this one, and then we're going to move on to that bathing suit. I didn't have any of that cute, like, plaid fabric for the bathing suit, so mine's going to be different, but I think it's still going to be cute. So get this trim close to the stitches. Oops, I think I missed a spot. There it goes. Okay. These are always a little tough to get into when they're in the middle. There's a little fabric in the middle here. Okay. There. It's kind of a tight spot at the top there. And, whoops, sorry, I just bonked the camera. That's the hard thing about this long hoop. I always am hitting the camera when I'm trying to trim with this big long hoop, flipping it around. Just depends on the blocks you're doing. I think the next block can be done in the smaller hoop, though. Seems like the next one's smaller. All right, just about there. Ooh, that's going to be pretty, isn't it? All right. I like that. All right, got our umbrella done, and then, yes, so the next one is going to be the placement line for the swimsuit. So I think I'll just leave the yellow in because it's all about the same color. I'll just leave the yellow in. I might do the outline on this in a darker color, but the yellow will be fine. So yeah, the placement line, and then we're going to put the swimsuit fabric on. Now this is a little bit directional, so I'll make sure that I kind of get it go in the direction I want it. And then we're going to do the placement line, or the tack down line. Has little lemons on it, so I'm going to see if I can kind of get them going the right direction here. I didn't know if that was the best fabric to use, but that's what was the right color, and I didn't have much for prints in yellow. I need to go buy a couple of extra yellow prints to have some around. There's the swimsuit, and then we're doing the tack down line, and then this one, then we also trim close to the stitches. And then we're going to move on to the flower, I think. Lots of applique on this one. Okay. All right, so let's see if we can get this trimmed. Yeah, I was looking for some. I think I might have had an orange. I could have maybe used the orange for the bathing suit. I think I had that in a plaid, but some of those, the yellow, I didn't have any. So I think this will be all right, though. It's a cute print. Okay. And at the bottom. Okay, so we got that one. Now I think the next one is going to be the little flower, and it's done in white. So let me switch over to my white thread. So stitch the flower placement line. This is number page, oh, I just dropped it too. Place the flower fabric right side up and then stitch the flower tack down line and trim close to the stitches. Okay, so we're going to do that in white. Oops. I lost some of my vinyl. Just a second here. Oh, here it is. I spend a lot of time picking things up off the floor, so we're going to put this piece on next. Let me get my white. Where'd my white go? Here's my white. Put this in for that. Oh, my helper's back. All right, we'll do some white. So the placement line is going to be first. So I think they didn't have you put any stabilizer on or any shape flex on the back of this because they wanted the kind of blue to show through, I think. So they didn't tell you to put any on this one. And then it's just the, yeah, so we're going to do the placement line, the tack down line, And then there's a decorative stitch that's going to go around it. Make sure I get it right side up. This one has a right and wrong side. But I think the blue kind of shows through it is what they were going after. So this one had a little bit of a print too. So we'll do our tack down line, and then we're going to trim this. I think this one has a decorative stitch around it. So you want to make sure, that's why I always change my threads to the colors that kind of match my fabrics, because they sometimes they put motif stitches and then the threads will show through. So I've gotten caught a couple of times, so it's better to do that. So then it says to trim, so trim the fabric close to the stitches. We're going to trim this little flower, and it kind of shows through the blue a little bit that's underneath, because there's a little bit of that light blue underneath there. That's probably why they did it that way. And I think you could have put the Shapeflex on it if you didn't want it to show through, but it gives it just a little bit of a blue hint then. I suppose because of the blue leaves, maybe. So I think it's pretty. All right. Lots of little spaces to trim, though. A little bit more to get here. That's a little turns. There we go. All right, so that looks pretty good. So now the next step, and this is step number 10 on page 10, that is going to be the decorative outlines for the flower. So we're just going to go ahead and put this back in and let it do the decorative outlines, and then we'll move on to some of the other decorative outlines. All right, so I'll put that in, and I'll be right back when we're ready to go on to the next one. I think this is going to be like a motif style stitch, looks like. Yeah. Okay, so step number 11 on page 10 is the umbrella section 1 satin outlines and the pole. So this is the lighter pink. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to go on to the yellow for the satin stitches on the other part of the umbrella. So it's just going to do these parts here and then a pole here. And then we'll do the other sections in yellow. Okay, so then the next part is number 12, and this is going to be the satin stitches on the yellow part of the umbrella. So I've got my I think it's Harvest Gold, but it's my yellow that I'm going to use around here. And then I think the next one's actually going to be the bathing suit. So yep, we're going to go back to the bathing suit then. So we'll do the satin stitches here, and then we'll go and do the bathing suit next. Okay, so the next step is number 13, and it's supposed to be kind of a gold, but I wanted to bring a little bit of a kind of an orangey gold in. So I've got, it's called orange, but it's a little bit more on the gold side, so a little bit more towards yellow. So that's going to be the bathing suit outline. So that's what I have in. It's my old orange. I guess it's the number 208. And that's what I'm going to put around my bathing suit, just to bring a little bit more kind of an orangey yellow into it. And then we're going to go on to putting the vinyl up here on the umbrella. Okay, so now we're to step number 14. So before 14, we're going to put on this vinyl. And the vinyls, as you can kind of see on the camera, they're tinted. So this is the pink one. And so I put my pink thread back in, and we're going to put this underneath or over the umbrella. And you could do this with clear vinyl as well, and that would look cute too. But they put tinted vinyl in the embellishment kit. I thought that was neat. So we're going to put that vinyl over, and then we're going to stitch out the tack down, and then we're going to trim it. So it's going to be trimmed like, it's going to be raw edge applique also. Now I do like to tape vinyls down because they're a little bit harder to, they scoot because they're slippery. So it's going to do like a nice little triple stitch through there. I'm going to stop it just a second before I get down here so I won't get that little tail sewn in. There we go. And then it's going to do this one, and then we're going to trim, and then we're going to do the yellow one the same way. So we got, and they gave you in the embellishment kit, it was a yellow and a pink piece of vinyl. But you could easily do this with clear vinyl too. I knew they have some colored vinyls, and the colored vinyls are really cool. I'm going to stop it just a second again and get that little tail so it won't get sewn in. It's kind of thick with that vinyl on there, so it's, there you go. So then we're going to trim this. I can put my tape away. We can use those two pieces for the next one. All right, so let's trim this. And then we'll do the other one. I'm going to put my yellow thread in for that one. Okay. Second here, whoops. Now this one is going to be raw edge, so you're going to want to kind of cut. So what I do is I use the satin stitch to kind of help me get it to look nice, because you want it to be smooth along the edges. So I kind of use the edge of my satin stitch to help me so that it stays nice and smooth. Let's get the other piece of tape off of here. Go. This one's going to be a little hard for me to trim because I have to turn it. Sorry, the hoop's kind of long. All right, we're going to go in here. Again, I'm going to kind of use that edge of my satin stitch. I'm kind of tipping my scissors towards me so that they stay kind of straight, because I don't want it to be real crooked. Let's see if we can get around here. I'm going to go around this way, and then we're going to trim this way. There we go. Okay, let's get this little piece up here. I'll have to flip it back over. These long hoops. As I've done more and more videos, I'm better at trimming when in the machine. I like to take it over and lay it down on my table to trim when they're big like this, but I like you to be able to see what I'm doing too. All right, so we got that side. All right, we got that side, so we're going to do this side now. Oops, I don't think I quite got the end of it, did I? A little bit right here. There we go. All right, we'll go up this side. So I'm kind of trimming right along the edge of the satin stitch. Do this side. Oops, maybe I already got most of that side done. Do the bottom. Get this side finished up. Okay, and then do the bottom here. That looks good. All right, there's the pink vinyl. That looks really cool. And then we're going to do the yellow. So I'm going to put my yellow thread in. Get my yellow thread up here. Same color that I used for the outlines here. And then we'll tape that on so it won't move to either. I kind of liked that orangey color, goldy color around the swimsuit. That looks pretty nice. I wanted to get a little bit more brightness in there. All right, so let's see. We'll get that. Whoops, here it is. Get this over the top. This is the yellow. Do that. Tape that down too on both sides. And thread the machine probably would be better, right? And then we're going to do the tack down line for this. It's kind of thick, so all right, so I'm going to stop it just a minute and get that tail, because it leaves a tail where that thickness is. There we go. All right. Then we're going to trim this. And then the last little step, oh, there's a little thing on the top of the umbrella that's done in blue, so that'll be pretty. Cool. So it's going to go over that. If it bounces a little bit like that, just put your hand down and it'll stop. It's just because it's thick there and it's trying to tie the knot. I just hold it a little bit and then it doesn't bounce so much. There we go. And it's going to go around and do the center one. That's cool. Makes a lot of noise though, doesn't it? And then we're going to do the last one. Looks like I have one more piece of thread that's sticking up here. We'll stop it for a second. Get that little piece of thread that's sticking up so it won't get tied into anything. There we go. And then it's going to do the third one, and then we'll trim this. I do like that colored vinyl though. That's really pretty. There we go. It's just where that ties the knots. It likes to leave that little tail. There we go. Really pretty. And then we'll trim it. And then we'll be ready for the last little step on this one. This one's turning out so cute. Lots of fun. I like the swimsuit. Okay, so I'll go ahead and trim this one. I'm going to do it the same way as I did the last one and just trim along, kind of along my satin stitch to help me. Kind of tip my scissors so that everything stays straight. And then we'll come back and do the little top, the little thing at the top of the umbrella. And that I think is going to be in blue. So I'll be right back after I do my trimming. Okay, so I went ahead and started the top. It's going to do just a little top, like the little pole tip on the top of that in the blue. So I have that kind of blue color that I did on the leaves down here. Isn't that going to be cute? And then we'll be back in a minute to see the finished block, and we'll move on to the little beach bag. Very cute. So here's the little tip on the top of the umbrella, and we've got our pretty vinyl on there with the fabric underneath, and we're all done. So now we're going to move on to the little beach bag. I got to get a couple things out before I start that one, so we'll do the beach bag next, and then we'll be the beach bag is in two hoopings, I think, because we do part of it on water soluble and part of it in the hoop. So it'll be just a little bit, and I'll be right back to start the beach bag. Okay, so we're going to move on to the beach bag, and the beach bag is in two pieces. So we're going to make the little pocket first, which is going to be the bag part that's going to be open so you can tuck this is going to be the towel, tuck it into the beach bag, and then this is the background piece. So this has shape flex on the back, and I folded it in half so that, because we're going to use this top part as the top of the little beach bag. And then there's also shape flex on the back of my background fabric, which we'll use in the next step. So the first step is the actual beach bag part. It's kind of like making a pocket. So we're going to start with that, and we're going to be using a 4x4 hoop with, let's see, 4x4 hoop with water-soluble stabilizer. So there's two pieces of water-soluble stabilizer in here, the type that I would make lace with. It's the fibrous type. So I've got that in there. And then the first step is going to be, this is on page 11, and the first step is going to be stitch the bag placement line directly onto the stabilizer. So I think what I'm going to do, since I used the orangey color on my swimsuit around the outside, I think I'll use the orangey color for the outside of my bag too. You'll also need a bobbin with the water soluble, or with the embroidery thread in it, because that's going to be the handle. So the handle will be basically lace. So wind a partial bobbin with your matching thread for the handle. So that'll be in one of the next steps coming up. Okay, so we're going to do the placement line first. So I've got my orange colored thread in here. Get the towel out of the way for a minute. So the first is stitch the bag placement line. I already brought my design up because it's the first design. So I already brought it up in there so I could see how big it was. I wanted to use a smaller hoop. And then it says to fold the bag fabric in half widthwise, wrong sides together, press well, which I've already done. So this is the shape flex on this side. And then we're going to place the bag fabric with the folded edge centered along the top line, tape in place. So this one we may want to tape just because we're not going to be, might make it a little, so I'm going to line it, the top fold up along those two lines up there like that. And then let's go ahead and just tape that down just because it needs to be specifically in one place. So we'll go ahead and tape those. And then it says stitch the bag tack down line. These stitches will be used to place the pocket in part B. Okay, so and it says do not remove. So we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to hold this down so it doesn't catch. And it's just going to tack it down to the stabilizer, the water-soluble stabilizer. Okay. And that's step number 2. Let's see here. And then it's going to do this little semicircle here. And we're only going to trim that little semicircle because that's where our little handle's going to be. So it says trim only the semicircle close to the stitching line shown in red. Do not trim any other edges at this time. So we're just going to turn this and we're going to trim this little semicircle out. So this is going to be where the handle's going to be. So it's going to do the little handle over the bag. And that will be lace, so it'll be dimensional. Okay, just like that. So we got that trimmed out. So now it says to change the bobbin thread to match the top, stitch the handle satin outline. Okay, so since I am using pre-wound bobbins, I'm going to take my needle plate off of my luminaire here. And I'm going to pull this whole bobbin case out because see, this is that tighter one used for pre-wound bobbins. And I need to change my bobbin case then to my standard one because this is embroidery thread that I have wound. So I'm going to put my standard bobbin case, which is the one with the kind of green paint on the screw here. I'm going to slip this in here. Put my needle plate back on. And yes, it's okay to remove your needle plate if the machine's on. Just be careful not to hit any buttons up here so you get your fingers in the way or something. So I'm going to put my embroidery thread then in the bobbin. That matches my top. And then I'm going to put this back in, and now it's going to do the little handle. That's going to be lace. So it says stitch the handle satin outline. So I'm just going to go ahead and it's going to stitch it. It's going to be like lace. So it will I think it's going to kind of hang off the bag here. I think might be another little piece that it's going to do that's going to be like a little bow on the side over here too. I think the only one that you needed the other bobbin for was just this yellow that's going to be hanging off the top. So this is kind of my orangey yellow that I'm using. This looks cool. And then I think the next step will be some lens. Oh, it's going to do like little sunglasses over here on the side too. But I think we put the regular bobbin back in then. Stitch the handle, and then we're going to change the bobbin thread back to the neutral color, and then we're going to do the lenses of the glasses. Okay, so then I'll get my pre-wound bobbin back. Okay, take this out, and I'm going to put my pre-wound bobbin back in. So I'll take this one out, put my tight bobbin case back in with my pre-wound. Okay. And then we'll be ready to do the glasses. So I think the glasses then we'll do in blue. So I got to get my blue thread. Blue and white, I think the glasses are going to be. So that kind of pretty blue that I've been using. And then it'll do the glasses. Okay, so get my hoop back in here. Where did I lay it? Oh, here it is. Almost lost it. There we go. So now it's going to do the glasses over here. And then I think the next step will be, this is step number 4 on the bottom of page 11. And then it's going to do the frames, which are going to be white. So we'll get those started, and then I'll be back in a moment when the lenses are done. Okay, we're ready for the white frames of the little sunglasses here, and then it's going to do the pink bow. So I'll be back in a minute for the pink bow. Okay, so we're ready for step number 6, the pink bow. So it's going to do the bow on the other side here, and then we'll be removing it from the hoop. Okay, so there's our little bow. Isn't that cute? So now what it says to do is to remove it from the hoop, which we will do. But then it says to like dip it in water. You know, normally we dip our water soluble in water and that kind of thing. And I'm going to trim it close to the stitches first. But what I'm going to do with this one, so I don't have to get it soaking wet so I can move on with the video. This is how I do that when I need to be able to move on, is I'm going to trim this really close to the stitches. And then I'm just going to take my finger and paint away all of the visible water soluble, and I can actually take this out on the inside too, because that way I can move on with the video, so I don't have to sit and let it dry, because if you get the whole thing wet, you know, it's going to take a while for it to dry. And if you want to move on with your class or with your project, you can do it this way. So I'm just going to get this close to the stitching. Just be careful not to cut through your stitching, maybe 1/8 of an inch away or so. And then I'm going to go paint this out with my finger in warm water. They always say cool water. Warm water actually works the best for this stuff, and it melts much faster if you use just not hot water, but just warm water. Okay, so I'm going to trim that, and then I'm going to go in and I'm actually going to trim this piece out of the middle too, because I don't want this left in here. So I'll just trim this out as well, if I can get under it. It's not gotten under the second piece. There we go, like that. And this I'll probably just leave in there, because it's going to be fine inside there, and you won't see it. But I'll get this part off here. But this way I can go on with the video or my project and not have to get this all wet, because it would take a while to dry because of the shape flex in there. So I really don't want to have to sit there and wait for it to dry. All right, so we're just going to trim this all down underneath the stitches. So you could have kind of done, well, really you should do it with the water soluble, because we're going to paint this away up here, but that's the only part that'll be wet, and it won't be soaky wet, so it'll just be damp, and it'll be fine when we go to do it. So I'm just going to trim this out from underneath there like that. Okay, and then I'm going to go get this little piece out, and then I'm going to go and paint the rest of it away with my finger, and then it won't be so wet that we can't go along and work on it. So okay, so this part here I'll stitch that up, but I want to get this out in the middle here too. So we'll just go through and trim some of that out. Just be careful not to cut through any of your stitches. But it won't be so wet now that I won't be able to move on with the project and do the second half of the block. So give me a second here. I'm going to go rinse this out and let it dry just a little bit, and then I'll be back to start. So I'm just going to, like I said, I'm just going to take my finger and then dampen this area here along the edge, and then in here, and then you can use a Q-tip too if that works better for you. I usually just use my finger and run warm water in the sink, and that works really well, and then I can move along and we can do the second half. So I'll be right back once I get that done. Okay, so here's our little bag, and I just removed the water soluble up around this area here, and it's a little damp, but see, we're going to be sewing over here. So what I did on the fabric is I just removed a little bit of it up here. Can you see? Because none of this is going to show. So what I just did is I removed that, and then I took a dry iron and just touched it there so that it wouldn't be wet when we got ready to work with it. And then this will dry, and we won't be ready for this for just a little bit, but this part will dry, and then it'll continue to dry on the block. So I figured then we could move along to finish this block. So there's our little piece. I'm going to lay that over to the side, and then we're going to get our next hat. So we're going to get the quilting. So now we're going to do the quilting, and I chose wavy 1 for this one. And I think I'm going to do it in my blue thread that matches my fabric. So it's this light blue. So get my light blue in here. We already got our regular bobbin thread back in again. And so now we're just going to finish our pocket. So I'm going to get the wavy one. So let's go ahead and come over here and get our quilting design first, because we need to quilt the block now. Let's see here. Oops. Kimberbell Quilting. So wavy one is what I'm going to go down to. See if I can get to it without going past it, of course. Wavy one. Here it is. And this one's going to be 4x4. Yeah, 4x4. So I've got this in a 5x7 hoop with my no-show mesh. So it's in a 5x7 hoop, and I'm going to do 4x4. And let's see. I think I'm going to go. It looks like the waves are going up and down, so I'm going to do the 4x4. Where's the 4x4? 4x10, 4x8. Oh, here it is. So I think I'm going to do this one that's going up and down like this. That's the way they have it going in here. I think that looks kind of neat, so we'll hit that. And then we're going to go get the second half of our design. So it's in the same folder as the first one. If I can find it, there it is. And August. And then here's the second half right here. So this is going to be the back of the bag and the satin stitching along the edge. And it says to bring it in centered, which it already is, so we've got it where we want it. Okay. So now, let's see, where do we start here? It says load the bee, which we did, and then stitch the bag, shadow fill, and handle satin outline. So I did my handles in that kind of orangey color, and that's what we'll do when we get to that. But we're going to do the quilting first. So I already got my blue in there. Sorry, we're going to do quilting first, aren't we? So I got ahead of myself. We have to quilt first. All right, so here's my background. My background fabric has the shape flex on it too, with this little blue polka dot. And oops, helps Jan if you thread the machine. Okay. And set my design, and then we're off. Step number one to do the quilting. So we're going to get our batting placement line first. Get that first, and then we're going to lay the batting down. So I'm going to get my batting ready. I have lots of little chunks of this batting, so this one's done the whole quilt. All right, then we're going to lay this down and tack it down. Step number two of our quilting. Okay. Let me get my tape off of here so it doesn't get stuck on something important. Okay, we're going to tack that down, and then we're going to trim our batting. But by doing it this way, we got to go on with the project. Otherwise, if you dip the whole thing in water, the little pocket part, it would take quite a while for it to dry. The handle will continue to dry with it being on the little quilt, so we'll be fine, or on the block. But I often do things like that if I know that it's like something I need to move on with. So if that's just a trick. So I can't always do it. It depends on what it is. Like this, there wasn't that much water soluble that was like going to be in the way, so I didn't have to remove. I could remove most of it with scissors instead, and you'll never see the rest of it underneath. All right, so let's trim that. Go across here. All right, so there's that. And then step number three is always our, push that back in, is our placement line for the fabric. So it is going to make this 4.5 by 4.5. I think we'll trim it to 4.5 by 4.5, yes. Okay, and then we'll lay this down. Next. Okay, get it centered on there, and then we'll tack it down. Step number 4 of the quilting. And then we'll do the quilting. And this one's going to do the little waves again. See how we're doing here. Should dry pretty good, I think. Looks like I need to trim a little bit on my glasses though. All right, so then we're going to do our quilting. And then we'll come back and we'll put our little bag together. I think basically all we have to do is put it on. There's a little background that you do, and then you just got to put the pocket on and do the satin stitching. So I don't think it's going to be hard at all. All right, so I'll be back in a moment and we'll start putting the pocket on. Okay, so the first step then in the actual block is going to be the bag shadow fill and handle satin stitch. So I have my kind of orangey color in. That's what I want to, because that's what color I made my handle in. So that's what I've got in there. We're going to do that step. And it's going to take a little bit. It's a little fill stitch. And then we're going to move on to placing the bag. So I'll come back when we're ready to get the bag put together. Okay, so we got the little background for our bag on here, and I think the next step says to stitch the bag placement line and tack marks or tick marks. So that's going to show us where to put this part down. I'm just going to leave that orangey colored thread in there because I'll be using that for the satin stitching, so I think that'll work just fine. Okay, so we got those. So that's going to help us get that in here. So it says to align the top fold of the beach bag made in part A with the top tick mark shown in black. Center the pocket by aligning the side pocket stitches with the side placement lines and completely covering the placement line with the remaining fabric. So then we're going to tape that down. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this back. So we're just going to line these all up. So we want those tick marks to be on the folds, and then the placement lines I think it's going to be, yeah, it's down a little bit. So we need to make the tick marks like that and center that in there like that. So it is going to be slightly offset, but there is going to be a towel in there so you won't notice that. So it is going to be slightly offset, so just be aware. All right, so I think that's going to be fine. I'm going to tape this down. Okay. So it is going to be dropped down just a little bit like this because there's going to be a little, but you can see the tops because I think that's the way it looks like in the picture. I'll look at the picture too. Yeah, so you can see in this picture right here, see how it's dropped down just a little bit? That looks right. Yep, so I think that's right. Make sure it's straight here. I don't think the side's up high enough. There we go. Okay. Then the next step is going to tack this all down. I'm just going to leave that same orange thread in here. Okay. I think I'll, whoops, second here. All right, so I'm just going to hold this in place so nothing shifts on me. Looks like it's doing well. So it's going to tack it down, and then it says to trim the fabric close to the stitch line along the outsides of the bag. So that's going to be, we're just going to trim then our bag, so to trim our pocket off. That. Oop, where did I put my scissors? I spend most of my life looking for my scissors. Here they are. They're over here. All right, so then we're going to trim this off, and we're not going to trim along the top, just along the edges here. Bottom and the edges. That. And like that. Okay, so there's that. Make sure there's nothing that's going to be wet or anything, so it shouldn't be a problem. And then we're going to do the satin stitching along the edges. And this is step number 4 on page 12. So we're going to do the satin stitching. I'm going to leave that same orange in there so that it all has that kind of orangey color to it. Looks pretty good. So it's going to do the satin stitching along the edges, and then we'll come back and we'll do some, not sure what we're going to do next. I think we're going to do, oh, we have to take some of these little tick marks off, I think. And that might be about it for this one. So let's see what, oh, I think there might be some marks on the edges to help us with the trimming. So I'll be back in a moment once the satin stitches are done. Okay, so the last step is going to be some little trimming marks over here on the corners. I don't know that we'd really need to stitch those, but it might help us because the thread is pretty matchy to the, so I'm just going to leave that orange in. It said to put a visible color in, so that should help us get it matched up. And then we need to take out those little tick marks that we put in. Those are really, this is really cute. Turned out really cute. It got a little piece of thread sticking out here yet. So I got to find a seam ripper to take those little tick marks out. All right, look at there. We're all done. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. This is still a little wet in here, so it'll be better once it's dried out. All right, so I've got a little, I got a little thread right there. All right, so we got to take these little tick marks out. So just be careful when you go to do this so you don't get into your satin stitching. But we don't want those little marks in there. That helped us get it lined up. We can just take those out with the seam ripper. I have to take that little knot out of the back. And then over here, just careful not to get into your satin stitching. This one's going to be more difficult. Let's see here if I can get it from the back here. Where that little knot is, sometimes it's hard to get the knot out. There was a bigger knot on this side, so it was being difficult. See if I can get it from the back here. Not quite yet. Sometimes you got to work from the back and the front. There we go. It's looser now. There we go. All right, we got those little knots out. There's our little bag. Isn't that cute? And then after it dries, it'll be even cuter. And then there's going to be a little, we're going to put that little piece of fabric, make it into a beach towel. So this will be the beach towel that we'll put into the little bag. Isn't that cute? So just hang on to that. We'll do that probably in the assembly video. So, all right, so give me a minute. I'll get us all set up and we'll trim our two little blocks that we've done in this video. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get these trimmed. This is the first block we did with the umbrella, and this one's going to be 6.5 by 8.5. So I have my 6.5 by 8.5 orange pop ruler with my Martelli mat here. And we're going to go ahead and get this one lined up with the little basting lines around the outside edge. That really helps a lot, doesn't it? And I'm going to go ahead and trim this. Start in a little bit, pull back to the corner, and go forward. Turn it around. Now I am left-handed, so I'm working, towards the right. So if you're right-handed, you'd be working the other direction. Okay. Well, it sure is nice to have a new rotary cutter. This one's way better. My rotary cutter, I noticed that they changed the little device that's in there too. It looks a little different, so I wonder if it doesn't break as easy. There's a little thing in there that would break occasionally. So there's my block. So it's 6.5 by 8.5. So there's my little swimsuit. Isn't that cute? Love that. And then let me go to the second one here. The beach bag is going to be 4.5 by 4.5. So I've got my square ruler here. Put this one over here. And here's the square one. Here. Get this all lined up, and it gave us those little tick marks will help us get it lined up too that they had us put in. Okay, let's get this lined up. Okay, do the same thing. Start in, pull back to the corner. It helps to get the corners done better. Start in just a little bit, pull back into the corner. I'm very deliberate when I use these rulers yet. I really like them, but I have to think very carefully, and just be careful when I use them. Otherwise, I can cut into my block, and I don't want to do that. So there is my little bag. Oh my gosh, isn't that cute? And this will dry a little bit better. Yeah, it's still a little wet, but isn't that darling? And then we'll put the little beach towel into it. So we'll do that when we get ready to put it together in the next video. So thank you so much. Here's all of our little blocks here. Let me get this out of the way, and I'll put all our little blocks here so you can see them. We got all of our blocks done for our quilt. Here's our little filler blocks. And then here's the dip into summer, and here's our flamingo. So we've got all the blocks done, ready to be put together in the next video. So video 3 will be the assembly of the mini quilt. So thank you so much for joining me for part 2 of the August mini quilt. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, I would really love it if you could. It is free. You do not have to pay anything to subscribe to a YouTube channel, and it helps me. So I'd appreciate that. Sew Along with Jan. Also, if you don't mind giving me a thumbs up for the video if you enjoyed it, I really appreciate that as well. So have a great day, and I will see you in video 3 for the assembly of the August mini quilt. Thank you, everybody.